Wanted to welcome you to this webinar around the Zebra Connected Factory Solutions, hosted by myself, Alan Thompson at Heartland, in addition to Enrique Herrera over at Zebra. Myself, Alan Thompson, I am our Director of Technology Solutions here at Heartland. Been with the company for just over 10 years, specializing in solutions architecture, pre-sale engineering, and other related involvements. Heartland is a value-added reseller based out of the Midwest, but serving companies not just within the continental US, but globally for any supply chain technology needs that they have, ranging from software, hardware, services, and everything in between. With that, I'm going to hand it off to Enrique here to give himself a little introduction.
Thank you, Alan. I'm Enrique Herrera. I'm Zebra's industry principal focused on manufacturing. I've only been Zebra about a year, but my previous 34 years have been in auto manufacturing, auto engineering, and then also in large technology companies as well as a global solution director.
Perfect. Thank you, Enrique. So today's subject is going to be around connected factory manufacturing and just technology across the supply chain as a whole as it specializes in the manufacturing industry. I'm going to go ahead and give Enrique some questions here. As any additional questions you have crop up, just feel free to pop those in the Q&A section. Our moderators will go ahead and look through those. And if at any point in time we're not able to get to those, they'll be batched to us after the webinar is done recording, and we'll get back to you as a follow-up. With that being said, Enrique, we're going to go ahead and get started.
Great.
So one of the first things that I want to ask you about is what are some potential key issues in manufacturing modernization that some of the common solutions that's within your portfolio can address very effectively?
Sure. I guess manufacturers have been digitizing a lot of their operations for many years in pockets and point solutions. Some of them homegrown, some of them built by partners. And actually, manufacturers are struggling with a very heterogeneous kind of solution landscape. And so, therefore, with that heterogeneousness and lots of different life cycle solutions, they're struggling, you kind of filling some gaps and also kind of dealing with some of that overlap or how to modernize that whole fleet of solutions. Very challenging. I think from a Zebra point of view, obviously we're foundational in kind of the hardware landscape and the data collection landscape to feed those solutions. So it's a great starting point and great foundation for that environment. And the other challenge that manufacturers are dealing with that we talk about in the vision study is the convergence of information technology and operational technology. Typically, those are kind of different parts of organizations at manufacturing. There's obviously a push to bring them together with a lot of these digitization technologies, and you're starting to kind of see that challenge kind of coming together at organizations. The other kind of challenges around the long-tailed return on investment. So there's a lot of investing in foundational infrastructure that seems to be, a long payoff. But once you have the infrastructure in place, you can kind of keep building your solutions kind of to keep getting the return on that investment. But that initial investment, has to be justified, and that return needs to be kind of looked at. The other part that manufacturers told us in the survey for the connected factory vision study was the skill sets, the technical skill sets of their workforce, along with upskilling a lot of new labor in the environment, getting them kind of the right level of technology, making it easier for them to onboard, making it more intuitive for new folks at the environment.
Gotcha. So I noticed towards the end there that you're mentioning that there's this kind of report that Zebra has access to, which is this vision study report done on the connected factory as a whole, and that's where you're getting some of these common pain points that you just mentioned.
Yeah, we commissioned that survey from 1,200 participants, C-level, both in IT and OT, as I just mentioned, and globally across different subverticals of manufacturing. And we compiled that survey information to draw some of the insights that we're going to talk about today.
Perfect. And for any attendees, we want to make sure that you're aware that you're going to get a copy of that report at the closing of the webinar. I'll give some more information about how that's going to be distributed at the end. So
Great.
the next thing that I want to kind of touch on here, Enrique, is really kind of, the whole meat and potatoes of this right now, which is what is a Zebra connected factory and what does that look like?
Sure. This initiative on the connected factory. So actually, manufacturers have been talking about a connected factory for several years. The definition is getting more and more refined. So initially, it was just having connectivity to the site. Having people kind of being able to visualize things. That was the initial definition, but that's gotten more and more sophisticated. And for our connected factory initiative, we derive these pillars that you see on the screen uh, from our corporate kind of pillars as well. And they're really driven around these three areas. The actionable visibility, and I'll talk about that one specifically, the augmented workforce, and optimized quality or digitized quality. The visibility one, manufacturers have had operational systems to give them visibility into the status of kind of the manufacturing process and orders. But we start talking about visibility of all the things moving physically within the manufacturing environment, whether it be, inventory moving, people moving, or equipment that's moving around, giving them visibility to that. Um, Visibility, just knowing the status of an order. The analogy in retail is when you go to a retail and they say that they have 10 of these in stock, but then they don't know where they are and they go looking for them. That's the piece that we do in manufacturing is help them identify those moving assets. And if you have visibility to how they move, you get an opportunity to improve and make that more efficient in minimizing movement and wasted movement. The augmented workforce in terms of we've been trying to kind of help our workforce with collaboration capabilities throughout the facility or even collaborating outside the facility as well. We also make them more efficient in their movements in their individual tasks that they're doing in station by capturing data as part opposed to having kind of additional steps and taking away from their efficiencies and providing kind of some tasks and them in track tasks and validation of that. So that's how we're kind of augmenting the frontline worker. The optimized quality piece is really around kind of either traceability, right, to understand, where kind of some issues may be cropping up, and identifying kind of traceability and genealogy of an assembly type of process, but it's also around digitizing that data capture so that again, an operator doesn't have to capture it and tally it in some paper or some spreadsheet, being able to capture some of that with kind of machine vision technology to be able to kind of identify some of these things that may be missing or kind of maybe not properly installed. And those pillars are really built on top of the Zebra portfolio. And in the middle there, the important piece of our partner and solutions ecosystem. And as you see those three boxes in there, we really look at crawl, walk, run, because we know a manufacturer may be at a very kind of crawl level in an initial factory, but they may be very sophisticated in their showcase factory. So we want to meet the customers where they are at that level of maturity.
Right. Yeah, I know that, in my touring of multiple different customers throughout the years, manufacturing, specifically within the US is such a wide array of maturity. You have companies that could be relatively new that are still using antiquated processes because they're proven to work. You've got old companies that have iterated over the decades and possibly even a century, really trying to get on that bleeding edge of technology. And there's obviously companies all where in between, where something as simple as just inline printing is a new concept for that business to where other people are looking at robotics and visions and machine learning and all those other things. One of
That's
the
right.
things that I like to get a little more deep in the weeds on here is could you share a particular instance or two where some of Zebra's unique solutions within their portfolio has really significantly boosted a manufacturing client's either productivity, their quality control, or possibly even a safety related initiative?
Yeah, sure. We'll talk about kind of real-time location systems and RFID that I know Heartland is very familiar with, and the frontline worker with devices. So we had a customer kind of assembling boats as an example, and yes, tracking the order, the order information of the build of a boat, right, can be tracked in a system, but actually looking at location of where it is and some of the components coming to it and then interfacing with the frontline worker help them kind of improve in terms of efficiency, in terms of not having to go look for components or understand where orders were in the process and if they were missing parts, and then making sure that frontline workers didn't have to go around and figure that out by having mobility devices in their hands. So that's how that kind of improved their efficiencies.
Yeah, that sounds like you're really able to just look at that just in time or work in process type of activity that happens at so many manufacturing plants and making sure that replenishment's happening on time and that you're actually getting proper counts on your utilization of raw materials or components for the make sure that you have nothing going on back order and you can really get the right component to the right assembly line component at the right time so that you can really just increase productivity all in all coupling that with things like I'm sure machine vision is something that's really up and coming in the manufacturing area to really automate that quality control and train your own engines to make sure that they know what your perception of quality is. What is your A plus rating? What is your goal when you're going through that manufacturing process?
That's exactly right. And you just mentioned it, Alan, right? You said that it's not just giving visibility to that frontline worker or to your operation, to your suppliers, right? To your customer into the visibility of where you are in the order process. You haven't started building because you've got some shortages and things. So you're absolutely right.
So I guess with Zebra, it's kind of that household name in as far as, industrial supply chain technology, really within that mobility space. But, the Zebra portfolio is a lot vaster than that. And I feel a lot of people don't understand every single aspect of the Zebra portfolio because it's not always what they're familiar with or what they're investing in. So, what advancements within technology that are specifically targeted at or useful to manufacturers that they may not be aware of or know that the Zebra portfolio can provide? What else are you investing in designing and developing that they may not think Zebra first?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned at the beginning, right? Our household brand is really around our printers and some of our data capture devices, right? And so usually when I go to factories, we'll see the Zebra portfolio there. But the breadth of the Zebra portfolio, as I kind of alluded to, RFID technology, right? In terms of being able to be passive, putting it on the label itself, being able to be read with a fixed reader or a handheld reader, which is the piece that's kind of interesting because we start talking about the portfolio. The handheld can also read the RFID tag, so you can kind of transition that process. But then when you get fixed, right, you can start doing some more automated transactions. And then as we evolve to the machine vision portfolio and our fixed industrial scanning using vision technologies to look and identify those identifiers on the label. And it may use more advanced AI capabilities with OCR, object character recognition, which is the ability to read those labels and that kind of capability. Now, our vision portfolio also evolves into the machine vision and 3D technology, which is much more sophisticated through some of our acquisitions and some of our software platforms. But it's that breadth of the portfolio, right, that we talk about, but it's also advancing into the artificial intelligence conversation, which seems to be the hottest topic in the last few years, in terms of AI technology and agentic AI technology and generative AI technology, which is kind of a spin on the traditional AI that's been around manufacturing for several years. And that one is really around helping the frontline worker on kind of bringing AI to the frontline worker and enabling those devices. And that's kind of what we're working on.
Yeah, I mean, when you traditionally hear AI, you think of like these large language models that are kind of these fixed assets. You got to type it into a prompt. Really, at the end of the day, a lot of the voice assistants that we've used for a decade now, you think of, Apple's voice assistant. I don't want to start triggering all these devices that may be in your homes. or the Google devices and things of that nature, you know, those really are a form of artificial intelligence. You know, it's taking a voice prompt and giving you a return. And the Zebra portfolio really investing in being able to bring that to the frontline worker is huge. Being able to ask an intelligent question around your job and get some sort of help document or process or procedure or output to help you with what you're stuck on is going to be a huge advancement in that self-service and self-help. And we know from, interviewing a lot of end users, they really want to be as self-sufficient as possible. They don't want to always have to go bother a supervisor or go to their trainer just to get a little piece of information that they could have in a matter of seconds rather than minutes of walking around and finding the right person and looking up the right document. So really using that AI feature on device to give them actionable information is going to be a huge leap forward in the productivity of these frontline workers. And when you start talking about 3D vision, I find that really compelling because a lot of the vision solutions that I've been exposed to over the years have been really on that 2D plane. Hey, I'm looking for, just what is out of place inside of this puzzle piece, rather than actually being able to get depth or, that third dimension to really understand, okay, what is the quality of this? Is there an imperfection that I can only see in a third dimension? So being able to identify objects really requires all three planes and not just the static two that we've been accustomed to over time. And I know from personal experience touring some of the innovation centers that Zebra has that it's really compelling the speed at which some of those new machine vision solutions can really detect anomalies.
Yeah, that's spot on. In terms of looking at it in 3D, we've had customers looking at volumetric analysis of filling, let's say, a hot pocket or a cookie, right? And seeing that the volumes are right using 3D. And one of the cool things about the acquisition of Photoneo was around it's not just static 3D, it can do the 3D point cloud piece in motion. So if you saw them at Automate, you could see that they had the 3D imaging system kind of looking at a spinning fan. It almost looked like a video, but it was digitizing in 3D as it was moving. And I think that's the differentiator for that acquisition.
Yeah, absolutely. So next thing I want to jump into here is, we've got a lot of manufacturing clients and, they've been throwing these terms and technologies for years. I mean, RFID isn't new, just the implementation and software that surrounds it has really brought that ecosystem forward. And supply chain technology as a whole is rapidly iterating with the migration of Android and the, imager-based barcode scanners and everything else that's happened over the past decade. But, how does Zebra keep up with modernization and all this rapid iteration, all these bleeding edge things that we're looking at, while keeping it approachable for like a wide range of clients and really making it, approachable to even a smaller or mid-sized business?
Yeah, I think we can talk about the breadth of the portfolio, right, in terms of um, being foundational to that data collection environment, being able to meet customers with that different type of technology. If they're paper-based kind of in their data capture, sure, we can kind of evolve them into either kind of a barcoding scenario or using OCR technology to help digitize some of these documents. But once you start moving kind of in that density curve or data density curve of capture, you can start capturing kind of RFID. It's not just replacing the tag. Now you're kind of adding location information, which helps contextualize other data being collected on the plant floor. You get to the vision piece, which is a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And then you get to 3D vision, as we were just talking about. But we also talk about the devices being bidirectional, capturing input from people and being also to disseminate some of those insights. And again, this foundation of the Zebra portfolio being used to kind of feed their systems of record or their operational systems or their systems of insight, whether they're doing analytics or they're kind of bringing it up to a kind of a broader level set of solutions and applications, but it's really to help them drive that operational excellence and that visibility across different areas, understanding that different parts of the plant, right, would bring that visibility up to get that overall efficiency. And then we started talking about how it starts driving kind of the AI and the cognitive approaches, which those are wonderful tools. But again, you have to give it information. You have to constantly give it information to keep refining some of those models. and then getting it back down to the person in the system of engagement with people with those handheld devices, being able to capture some of their input, whether it's typed or spoken, many ways to input or sensed, but also being able to communicate that back as being bidirectional and front ends to those other systems and coming together. So I think the way I've been kind of talking about this with our industry analysts and our customers is that we're the foundation for a data infrastructure in the manufacturing environment. So as they have a very heterogeneous solution landscape, the data piece needs to be consistent because that pain of having to go into different systems to kind of contextualize yourself, whatnot, is really waste, right? And more efficiently. So starting with a good solid foundation and building on these solutions is really the right way to kind of keep yourself right solving problems today and kind of evolving towards the future problems you're trying to address.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple key call outs there is, firstly, working at Heartland, we've helped a lot of customers in different areas. We've helped them get off pen and paper or legacy, hard-coded desktop systems to be mobile, to get a full WMS system that is mobile frontline worker first. We've helped them standardize on their scanning approach. We've helped them, digitize these legacy platforms. There's a lot of customers that are still running a good WMS practice that's running on a telnet infrastructure, not knowing that you can actually modernize that without having to rip and replace and spend 7 digits. It doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar new ERP to get some new fancy feature. There's middleware that we've worked hand in hand to be able to modernize that interface. Most people don't know that you can make Telnet touch compliant. They don't know that you can hook up a heads-up display to Telnet of all things and linearize that workflow and add in, voice-directed workflows as part of that modernization approach. And the Zebra portfolio really gives you every single widget that you could ever want and helps you implement it the right way through their software solutions.
That's right. I mean, we also see that the other way, right, Alan, as well, where people are modernizing some of those enterprise systems, right? And then they wind up having kind of a data collection discussion, right, as well, and modernizing their fleet of hardware to kind of get additional data or, kind of different types of data, different sensors, different other types of data collection environments as well. So that's a great point.
Yeah. So with that, I think we are going to be running up on time here. I wanted to keep that in mind. I wanted to really thank everybody for your time. We really appreciate it. If we didn't get to your question, we really want to, let our moderation team send that as a follow-up list to us, and we'll definitely get back in touch with you. Really, thank you for attending today's webinar. We hope you found it insightful. Keep an eye out for that email with your free vision study report on the connected factory to learn more about the latest trends in manufacturing. And honestly, just please reach out to Heartland if you have any inquiries or would like to learn how your business can really evolve by exploring these types of solutions. With that, Enrique and I thank you on behalf of Zebra and Heartland, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.